Hi, this is David again. I wanted to do this video on Mormon double talk. Cults all have secret words, secret phrase, secret sentences, secret handshakes, secret facial expressions, whatever. The Mormon Church doesn't abandon those kinds of things, so it's certainly, in my opinion, cult behavior. One of the things that I wanted to cover on this video is what the Mormon Church calls a court of love. Now, if any of you watching this video have been to any kind of a court and you walked out of a court hearing and said, wow, that's a court of love, please send me a comment. Please tell me what country and what court you came out of that believed in your mind was a court of love. Now, a court of love in the Mormon Church is an excommunication. That's what they call a court of love. It's not a court of love, it's a court of hate. They are throwing you out of their church. Now, it used to be the only way they could throw you out was if you committed adultery or fornication or homosexuality or a murder, you know, serious kinds of charges which can be identified. Well, the Mormon Church has a lot of things in it that is very similar to the military. They now have a category in the church handbook. I have a copy of the church handbook, 2010 on my computer, and it's comical in and of itself. Be that as it may, they have a new category now called behavior unbecoming. I don't know what's unbecoming. I guess it's unbecoming a Mormon. In other words, you don't lie, cheat, or steal, so it's behavior unbecoming to a Mormon. I don't know. But I do know it's a military term that basically says your behavior was unbecoming an officer. In other words, as an officer, your behavior went below what an officer should be doing. Well, let me tell you about a court of love in the Mormon Church. Not that I've been in one now. You know, all you Mormons that are going, see, he's excommunicated, see, the devil horns, the whole thing. It's not true. I was never excommunicated. I've never been in a court of law. Or a court of love. I've been in a court of law many times. Here's how it goes. You've got the 12 representatives of the High Council sitting, 6 on one side, 6 on the other, stake president at the head of the table, and then your puny ass at the bottom of the table. Now, the 6 people that are on one side are for the church, supposedly, and the 6 people on the other side are for you. That seems fair, doesn't it? On its face, it does. You cannot listen to the words of these people. They're liars. They're cheaters and they're thieves. And they're very good and they're very deceptive. Now, the 6 members that are for you have never talked to you. They don't know your name. They haven't heard your case. They have no preparation for a defense. No witnesses, no pictures, no testimony, no nothing. So your 6 representatives are well prepared to keep your ass in the church, right? See, they say one thing, but they do another. Now the other 6 people are for protecting the good name of the church. The church doesn't have a good name. The church has nothing but a foul, outrageous name. But they think they have a good name. Now, these 12 people, the High Council, meets with the state president at least once a week, if not more. Plus they go to these courts of love to determine justice. Well, if they vote against the state president, they'll be sitting in that seat at the end of the table themselves. Because that's behavior unbecoming, that they didn't support their leaders. So your 6 people don't say a word in your defense. The other 6 people will basically say, well, we understand you had an affair. And of course the stake president now has briefed everybody. You've never seen these people before generally, and they don't know you from Adam. And the stake president is going to give one side of the story. There is no defense. Stake president is a prosecutor, and he's speaking to a jury of 12 who he can reprimand if they do not agree with his conclusions. Now, my one friend that has had the most experience with the court of love lost his job, went into thousands of dollars of debt from this kangaroo court. And let me just, not by name because I don't want to embarrass the man, but he wrote a book. And just before the Olympics, when Mitt Romney came here, the Mormon church approved the book. They had a book signing, and the stake president and the bishop and others were enthusiastic about the man's book. It was on polygamy. And the man spent thousands of dollars putting up a couple of freeway signs, those great big signs with the lights on them. So he spent whatever, $20,000 there, and people were pouring in for the Olympics, and he was hoping to sell, you know, he had a whole warehouse of these books that he paid for himself to be published. Well, a short story short, the Mormon church changed its mind and said, we don't approve of those signs and your book. Take the signs down and disavow the book. Well, the book was factual. It was historical journals of polygamous families. Well, he took the signs down and lost all that money. I don't know if that was $20,000 to $50,000. And then his book went on the shit list of the Mormon church. Well, when the Mormons leaders say don't buy this book or don't read this book in Utah, you might as well, you know, kiss your publisher goodbye. So this guy has an entire warehouse full of thousands of his books that he printed hoping to sell them. And they're just sitting right now. Today, as I'm sitting here on this couch, they're sitting in his warehouse and he's unable to sell them. Well, a few months later, he got this nice letter from the state presidency that basically says, you have a court on Monday the 17th at 8 p.m., come on in. So that's your service, your process service in the Mormon church. So he shows up for his court, and there's the 12 apostles, whatever you want to call them, the 12 fools, the 12, high councilmen. Do they ever have a low councilman or a medium councilman? No, they always high counselors, secretary, president, first counselor, president. I mean, the words in and of themselves is Mormon double talk. So the state president approached him at the end of the table, and he had this great big stack of papers. And he said to my friend, we have all of these witnesses that say that you have sympathy towards polygamy. And you know that the Mormon church, unless you're rich and paying a lot of tithing and you lay low, doesn't approve of polygamy. And so then we are going to try you on apostasy, on heresy, apostasy. So my friend says to the stake president, well, may I see the people who are accusing me? And the stake president said, no, this is confidential. And he said to my defendant friend, he said, well, how could it be confidential if I can't even, reply to the comments that people have made? Well, in the Constitution, as you know, and as I know in the United States, you have a right to face your accusers. Well, not in the Mormon church. Not in the Mormon church. So the state president then began to give a synopsis, his synopsis of what was said, and that there were, family members and there were neighbors and other people in the ward that said that my defendant friend was an apostate, which he wasn't. He was going to church. He was paying his tithing. He was wearing his garments. He didn't have any sexual contact. He didn't smoke. He didn't drink. But he had behavior unbecoming. So he tried to defend himself. I think that took about 3.5 minutes. State presidency cut him off, and then they send you out of the room and make you sit in the hall like some kind of a reform school child, And then the High Council and the President all discuss the case to come to a decision. Well, they called him back in the room, and the decision was his ass was gone. He is now excommunicated from the Mormon Church. So, basically, his job had a lot to do with the Mormon Church, so he didn't work for the Mormon Church, but he generally lost the ability to do his job well and to work with members of the church who were part of his employment. Well, now he's got, I don't know if it's $35,000 or $100,000 worth of books that are worthless sitting in a warehouse. So I've been to the courts of love through the hearsay of my friends, and I certainly have read and talked to others that have had the same experience. Well, the main purpose and the reason that I'm doing this video is that the Mormons have these phrases and these sentences that have no meaning except to a Mormon. Ordinary people using ordinary English would not call an excommunication court a court of love. Now the Mormons say that, and then they say this gives the person who is excommunicated an opportunity to repent and be rebaptized. Well, let me tell you something about excommunicated members of the church. I'm not one of them, but those that I've spoken to are not lined up to go back into that prison. There's a certain amount of relief. There may be people, and I'm going to admit this, there may be people who have had affairs, or they've done some grievous kinds of things that probably would be excommunicated from other churches. But there's many people in the Mormon church that are excommunicated for just people not liking their shirt or their haircut or their politics or their mouth. So, the Mormons believe they're doing a good thing. This is cult. This is cult thinking. The man loses his job, he gets a divorce, he loses his family, his children begin to shun him, and he has to go join another church somewhere else, and has to find a new mate to marry, and has to struggle to keep his business going at all, and went through terrible times of distress and physical sickness because of the stress that the Mormon church put on him. He's not in line to get rebaptized. It doesn't generally happen. It does not happen. The Mormons think it does. There's no statistics on it, of course, because they don't even give statistics on the money or how many people are in the church. Everything is sacred. See, it's secret. It's not sacred. It's secret because they're pulling the wool over people's eyes. It's a scam. There's a lot of scam stuff going on. So there's your court of love and your first example of Mormon think tank doctrine and talk. Now, the main one that I wanted to cover today was the idea, now this is Mormon thinking again, that if they are criticized, now you've got to realize that Mormons believe anything, I don't care what it is, anything that does not agree with them is anti-Mormon. You are after them. Satan is on your mind and Satan is influencing you. Everything is anti-Mormon unless it's right down the line of what Mormons believe. Well, that makes things very difficult for most of us in the real world because the Mormons attach certain words to and certain policies and procedures like a court of love that we couldn't possibly understand. That's not what we call it. We call it an excommunication court to be excommunicated. Well, they've got this other philosophy. Now, this is a little bit older. They've kind of gotten away from this with Romney running for the presidency, but they used to call themselves a peculiar people. And if they've ever said anything that's true, that may come very close to it. They liked being a peculiar people. Well, they were taught that peculiar means that they stood alone, that they were a chosen race. They were going to the celestial kingdom, and those that are not peculiar and go to their religion will rot in hell. Well, there's that double talk again. They're going to be a peculiar people, but when that finally got out with the internet and with real people that understand English and the dictionary, the Mormon church said, well, we're not that peculiar. So, well, excuse me, one time they're peculiar, the other time they're not peculiar. They've always been peculiar, but they now believe they're not peculiar because they want Mitt Romney to be peculiar. Well, be that as it may. Now, here's the other the last thing I wanted to cover. The Mormons believe that if you say something that is true, or say something that is against them, you're not only anti-Mormon, and that you're under the influence of Satan, and you're an apostate, and you're working for the devil, but also they believe the more people that criticize them, the more truth their church is. Now, this makes sense. This makes sense to a Mormon. I know half of you are going, what? What? I did too. When I heard this again this morning, because I hadn't thought about this for years. They believe that people who, on the internet or in groups or write books or whatever, are under the influence of Satan, and that basically the church is true, otherwise Satan wouldn't be trying to shut it down. Well, if you believe that, and that makes sense to you, you're definitely a Mormon. You're definitely a Mormon. Anyone with common sense knows just the opposite. If you have a lot of people criticizing and asking questions, making statements that are true, that is not persecution. That basically is a reward for being untruthful. That they've caught you with your panties down. Well, the Mormons don't wear panties. They wear garments, so you can't get them down no matter what. So, any criticism of a Mormon or the Mormon church or its doctrines, policies, and procedures is work of the devil, because the Mormons are Latter-day Saints. There's another one. It's kind of like military intelligence. There's no such thing. And Latter-day Saints, there's no such thing. These people are not saints. Why would they call themselves saints? Now, I know a little bit about the Catholic Church, and you know, a saint has to be dead for a while, and they have to, I think, have a miracle confirmed, and then they become a saint, and there's just one. How 4 million, and that's the real numbers in the Mormon Church, 4 million active members of the Mormon Church, believe they're all saints is only in Mormon mind. It is only in the minds of the Mormons. Nobody else on this planet thinks that they're Latter-day Saints, because there weren't any older saints. The other saints were basically from the Catholic Church, the Great and Abominable Church. I forgot. What the old temple ceremony, they called the Catholic Church the Great and Abominable Church. And of course, Joseph Smith said, Jesus said they were all an abomination to Jesus. Well, again, there's Mormon doublethink and cult talk. Well, this is what's hilarious, that the more pressure that society puts on the Mormon Church to tell the truth and to confront them with their history and their doctrine, they believe it is true. That's why people are persecuting them. And it's kind of like a criminal who's caught red-handed shooting a person with a gun in his hand and the blood all over his shirt of the person, and the jury says that he's guilty, and the press and society are all standing outside with signs, and he walks out of the building and says, see, I'm not guilty. These people are influenced by Satan. I'm a saint. There's the analogy, and it makes sense to Mormons. Be careful. It really makes sense to Mormons. So, if you persecute them, if you put tapes out like this, I have never on one tape, I don't know, I've got 250 tapes now, and hits of about 10,300, 10,400 people. And the persecution is not there. I have never said, don't join the Mormon Church. I've never said, leave the Mormon Church. I've never said anything about the Mormon Church except what I have seen and what I've read and what I have experienced. I don't belong to any clubs that hate the Mormons. I don't belong to any groups. I don't go to any FLDS meetings. I sit in the house and I talk to you people. I look at my camera and say, hey, you know, If I know anything after 50 years, it's the Mormon Church. And I'm just simply telling you the nutball stuff that I did, and now that I look back on it, and I'm kind of deprogrammed from a cult, that I find humorous. It's humorous. If everybody is yelling and screaming at you and throwing eggs, it means you're the best person in the world. It means Satan has all those people influenced that are against you. And if you've seen God and said you've seen God, and all those people go, well, give us some proof, oh, they're of the devil. Well, I'm not trying to get anyone out of the Mormon Church. I think the Mormon Church gets its own people out at a rate that is pretty large. I know there's a lot of resignations, and I know there's some excommunications. So if you're in the Mormon Church and you like the Mormon Church, for heaven's sakes, stay in the Mormon Church. That's where you belong. And if you believe that people who ask the questions like, is it right for a 38-year-old man to marry two 14-year-olds, Winchester, Nancy, and Helen Mar Kimball, and you think that's a good thing, then stand up and say so. Stand up, raise your hand in general conference to sustain those people as the prophets, seers, and revelators, and the only people on the face of the earth that has the keys to the kingdom. Well, I don't think so. That's just my opinion. That's just my opinion. You may have a very different experience and very different opinion of the Mormon Church. I'm ashamed of some of the things I did. I'm ashamed of some of the things I didn't stand up and say, whoa, wait a minute, that's not right. I'm ashamed that I was that easily brainwashed. I wasn't totally born in the church. I was about 7 years old when the stake missionaries knocked on my parents' doors in Michigan and converted them. And so I've been raised in the church basically my whole life. So watch out for double words. Watch out for what they say, and then look what they do. That's what changed me in the Mormon Church. They said it was a court of love. I didn't see any love. I didn't see any love at all. So be careful, be wise, and watch out. They can be tricky. Thank you.